Now, I mentioned before that we are building an airport with the hope of seeing lots and lots of people coming to St. Vincent, a direct impact on the tourism sector. But not only would it impact the tourism sector, it will impact our health sector. Because the more people you have coming into your country, the more open you are and prone to diseases coming in as well. We do have quarantine, but sometimes the quarantines don't catch everybody. Some people slip in and they might bring something with them that we don't expect. No, that is going to turn your lives upside down as nurses. So that you as nurses have to start thinking that I need to be fully prepared, be up to bars and with whatever is out there, all the different diseases, read a lot, study really hard, as I'm sure you're doing now, and make sure that you're ready for all of this. Because with this, it means that we have to improve our health sector. They have started. You have seen polyclinics being established in other areas. For example, there is a new one in Stubbs. There is one in Mespo. We already have a health center and clinic in Mespo, and there are plans to build another polyclinic in Mespo. You have Bayabu and you have the other areas. Now, they don't operate on a 24-hour basis. But once the airport is in operation, it means that these polyclinics will be operating on a 24-hour basis. And it means that nurses will have to be stationed in these polyclinics round the clock. So you're going to be taken out of your comfort zones, as you know it now, to some of these new areas where you're going to be expected to perform. And if there is an emergency, for example, let's say there is a plane crash at Argyle, God forbid that it happens, but let's say it happens, and people need emergency assistance. The first stops will be those health centers that are closest to the airport. You're going to be very, very busy, and you will have to be the first respondents to make sure you stabilize these people, have them, if they need first aid treatment, treat them, and then if they need to go to Kingston, then you send them on to Kingston or Georgetown, wherever the case may be. So nurses, you are going to be very, very busy. So our healthcare facilities and our healthcare providers, the standards have to be improved. I know we have high standards, and I know our nursing school turns out like the best nurses throughout the region, but we have to be on top of it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here, I'm saying that because it is true. I used to work in Barbados, and they love to have our nurses. That's why they import them all the time. Okay, so these are some of the other implications. It means, therefore, if we are going to be operating more on a 24-hour basis in like Stubbs, Mariaquah, and Mariaquah has Aviation, and they have right down in the valley, you have Bayabu, you have Georgetown, you have all these places, and a lot of you may come from other areas that are not close to those areas. So if you're stationed there for quite a while, it means, therefore, you may now have to be looking for housing, because public transportation, if you don't have your own vehicle, is not as easy to get in the night as you would like. So rather than trying to be on the street, bumping a ride, or having to ask somebody to come and pick you up all the time, you might decide, let me get an apartment closer to Calder, closer to Stubbs, where it is closer to work. And it may be temporary, depending on how long you're going to work there. So there will be more need for short-term housing to accommodate persons. Similarly, it's going to affect like teachers, because if we're going to have more people coming into Argyle, then it means we have to improve the education system out there. Because if people are working there, they might opt to send their children closer, and they want good facilities. So it's going to impact us quite a lot. So nurses, you're not immune from the airport. It's going to touch you. And it's not just tourists who will need your services. The airport is going to need just about 300 or maybe more persons to operate out there. The different businesses that would spring up around it means that more local people will be moving into the area. And so we're going to have more people, in addition to perhaps tourists, who will need medical facilities and medical assistance. And the nurses are going to be the first people they see, even before they see a doctor. Because you're the ones who will decide if you're going to call the doctor or not, right? If he's not stationed there permanently. The nurses will make that determination. So you will have a really, really big role to play in all of this. So I'm saying all of this to say to you, start preparing yourselves mentally for what is going to come. Because it is not if it's going to come, it is going to come. The airport is almost finished. And those are some of the things that we are going to have to look at. A paradigm shift is needed. And while I'm at that, I will also want to say to you, I know they teach people these things and you are taught, but sometimes some of us have a tendency to forget what we are taught and we do our own thing. If our tourism product is going to succeed, it's going to depend on all of us. A lot of people think they have nothing to do with tourism because they don't work directly in the field. They don't work in the stores, they don't work in the supermarkets, they're not at the Ministry of Tourism, they're not at the beaches, they're not a tour guide, so it doesn't affect me, I have nothing to do with it. But it affects all of us, and we all need to play our role to ensure that it is successful. Otherwise, we would have constructed the Algarve International Airport in vain. So we cannot afford for a tourism product to go down. I say all of that to say that we need to be mindful of our attitudes towards people. And we also have to be mindful of our attitude to people who are not of like color or like skin. And a lot of people who do not look like us would start to come into St. Vincent once the international airport is completed. One, they're going to come because St. Vincent is a beautiful country and they're going to come to see it. Two, airfares will go down. Rather than having to buy 2 airline tickets to get here, you will now need only to buy 1. So if you're coming on long haul flights, rather than buying a ticket fully yet, you can come directly to St. Vincent. So it's going to be cheaper and more people will come. And our tourism product is also one of the best in the entire region. We have it all. We have ecotourism, we have the sand and sea. The only thing we need to develop here really is our entertainment, nightlife, and we will be swinging. So we really have the potential to see tourism develop. So I tell every section of persons that I talk to, we have to be mindful of our attitudes. And you will excuse me if I say this, but there are people who do complain that from time to time they do encounter nurses who don't exactly have the best attitude. And that is not just for nurses, it is throughout the entire society. You walk into a store and you want to turn back up because the attitude of the clerks, the people who are there supposed to help you, is so bad. You know, you go into a restaurant, you go to the front desk, and you are less than happy with the greeting you get, and you want to turn away. So throughout our entire country, the services industry, people need to take a look at their attitudes. And we really need a paradigm shift in our attitude towards other people. We need to be a little bit more helpful, a bit more courteous, a little bit more friendly to people, you know, those kinds of things. And if we get those little things right, our country will be a beautiful, successful place in which to come and in which to live. You will not want to leave to go anywhere else. So let us make it that. The other thing I want to stress before I shut up and have you ask questions is this. You're at a good place. I would encourage you to study hard, pass your exams, do well, but not just to stay there. Make sure that the bachelor's degrees that are being offered, that you capitalize on those as well. So don't just stay here with the nursing certificate or whatever it is you get. Try and do the bachelor's degree. Try and do the master's degree. Improve on whatever you have, because the health care system would increase, you're now going to have more positions at the top. And you want to be in a position to capitalize on those. We're now operating an OECS economic union. It means that persons from St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Kitts, you name it, once you're in the OECS, they can come here to work. And it doesn't matter which fields. We have freedom of movement. So when you have those positions that are high up and they're being advertised, and you have people from St. Kitts and St. Lucia and wherever else applying for these positions, they are going to give the jobs to the best candidate, not necessarily to the Vincentian. So it becomes competitive, and that cuts across the board throughout the length and breadth of St. Vincent, no matter what profession you're in. So I encourage persons, and I'm encouraging you, to don't stay where you are, but push ahead, move on, and become as qualified as you possibly can. They're also given opportunities to ask questions.
With the completion of the airport, right, does that mean that Layne and Barbados will stop terrorizing Vincentians?
I don't think it means that. Is Layne terrorizing Vincentians? Yeah. Really? And Barbados? Okay, let me tell you what would happen, and let's get real. We are going to try and get long-haul flights to come into St. Vincent. So if you're coming from Canada, the US, England, we're going to have flights come in directly. At least we're trying to get them to come directly. By next month sometime, I think they should be announcing which airlines are coming here. However, it doesn't mean that your in transit would end. Let's say you're coming from the Middle East, for example. You will not get a flight coming straight to St. Vincent. So you will have to in transit somewhere in the UK or someplace to catch the flight that's coming here. But let's say that you are going to a different Caribbean island. You would still need to use Layne because the long-haul flights won't take you there. So you will still need to use Layne unless other small airlines, like probably, let's say, Caribbean Airlines, they're smaller planes. RedJet has gone. I don't think RedJet is anywhere. That folded already. So that CAL is the other Caribbean Airlines that took over Air Jamaica, and they have smaller planes like Layne. So if they take on the route, then maybe that way you will have some choice between Layne and something else. But Layne will still be there. You have inter-island travel, and the long-haul flights will not take care of the inter-island travel. You still have to use those small planes. So you will still have to go to Barbados.
Does sea blast affect the office, or would it affect the airport?
Sea blast will, because it's salt. It will affect, it affects our office because we have to paint, and just like it affected the houses that were there. So you have to be prepared for maintenance. But what we are doing with the Argyle Airport is trying to build in such a way that we minimize the amount of maintenance that we have to do. That's why our roof has a coating that will prevent it from rusting. And the ground floor of our building, the front that is facing the sea, we have actually put stone wall. So, you know, stone would stick up and last a long time. So you won't have to paint down there. Just have to go to the second floor and up if you need to be painted. And those would need to be painted less often than, let's say, the ground floor would need it to be painted. So those things were taken into consideration, and the building is being built in such a way to make it more of a low maintenance rather than a high maintenance building, because we're close to the sea and all of that was taken into consideration. Right now, the IADC and the planning department, we are at the finalizing stage of a land use plan. That means that the entire area is being zoned as to what can go where. So there are areas being zoned for housing, there are areas being zoned for commercial activity, the areas being zoned for housing and commercial activity, and the areas being zoned for recreational activities. So that planning will have a major task to do to ensure that these people comply with the zoning and what can go where around the airport site. So it's not going to be a situation where you can just go there and put down anything. You will have to comply with planning and the zoning. The only how it may fail is if the planning department fails. And around International Airport, I don't think they can afford to make it fail.
For more information about the construction of the Argyle International Airport, log on to www.svgiadc.com or look us up on Facebook at Friends of the Argyle International Airport.